Hello, everybody. My name is Danny. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here, and it's good to be sober. So, tonight we're going to share on the 7th, 8th, and 9th step, which really is the cleanup, really, of the recovery that occurs at the end of 9, where you really have completed the basic process of the steps, and then from there on you'll be, really living the steps in your life through 10, 11, and 12. On a daily basis, really. That's really the process, and we never really complete the process. It's an ongoing basis. Just briefly, of course, the first steps before this, first step, I had to admit that I was powerless and almost hopeless. Get to a place where I'm hopeless, I can't recover on my own. Second step, I got a glimmer of hope that there was a power greater than myself that would restore me to my sanity. Third step, I became willing to actually seek that power and do what was necessary to uncover that power. And basically, those first 3 steps are, from my understanding, are really just mental thoughts that I'm thinking about it, coming to, the first step, you might have some action if you do some writing about your history, but it's really a process of just admitting that you have this disease, which we believe is a spiritual malady, and also a physical allergy, and that left to my own devices, I will not recover. I must find a power greater than myself, and that's really the purpose of the steps, and I become willing to do that. Then I do an inventory of myself to find out what it is that is blocking me from that power that I firmly believe is within us all. And so why am I not experiencing that power? What am I going to do to uncover that power? So I need to find out what it is that is blocking me from that power. As any of you were here last week, I like to call it spiritual cholesterol. What are the spiritual things in me that are blocking me from the power, that's not allowing me to operate as a channel for the power, which is really my goal. So we do that inventory, and then we take that necessary step of speaking with someone else and talking about it, and hopefully it's your sponsor or at least someone who is familiar with the steps. And really, in the 5th step, it says in the book, and I think from my own experience also, is when we first start experiencing a spiritual experience. We actually feel an experience. And it's important to understand that we're trying to get to a spiritual experience, not spiritual knowledge. Because we could have spiritual knowledge of what it is and so forth, but that's not that helpful. That's almost the same as self-knowledge. It's just knowledge of the process. We need to experience the change that is necessary to keep me sober. And that, to me, is really a miracle. A miracle is that we actually have a change in our perception to see things differently than we ever saw before. And that's what the step process will do. It'll create a miracle within you, which there's lots of miracles right here. So after that process, we go home and they tell us to take the book out again or rethink everything. Have we left everything on the table? Have we put it out there? Have we spoken about it? And we become willing to change in the areas that we uncovered about ourselves to become a more loving person. It's usually almost every one of your fears is an opposite of a love thing. It's about love. It's about being a loving person to someone else. I need to prepare myself to be fit to be of maximum service to God and others. If you were like me, I was not that way. So I uncovered a lot about me that needed to change. And I'm doing this for one reason, so that I can recover and stay sober. It's very, very important, because if I don't stay sober, I die. I have no illusion about that. I'm not looking to find a way to drink again. I'm just trying to be able to be of maximum service to God and others in this world. So about that time, really what we do, and I don't remember everything off the top of my head, so I did bring it, which is, the prayer itself is not as important as what's in your heart and how you really feel, but the book makes it easy for us. It gives us a nice 7-step prayer, but it doesn't have to be this prayer. It really doesn't, but this is a pretty good one if you don't have one. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. So I'm actually, and it's very important that you just, for me, is that I had a heartfelt really feeling about that, to bring it into my heart, that I really wanted God. Now, if we really came to believe in the second step that we needed to find the power to restore us to sanity, at that particular point, we're usually just so that we wouldn't drink again. Now we have uncovered that in order for me not to drink again, I need to change these basic character flaws that I have. And we go back to almost that same belief. I need to humbly ask that I have to be open to the fact that I need help to change. Okay? Now, I have to be a willing partner to change, and I'm a firm believer as we chip away the cholesterol. Now, some of the cholesterol has already been removed through the fifth step, the actual willingness to change. We don't want to be that person anymore. You will be feeling, if you have done this thoroughly, you will be glimpsing a part of the magic that occurs where God is actually speaking through you. But the process is not complete. Okay? We need to continue to do more work. And there's nothing more that is going to flush you completely than embarking on the 8th and 9th step. Because these are the steps that really do take a lot of courage. Not so much in 8, more in 9. In 8, we're really going to, first of all, we should have a list that we made when we did in the 4th step of the harms we did to other people. So there's a list already of who we need to make amends to. So 8, we're really just becoming willing to make amends to everybody that's on that list. And if you can't get to the point where you're really willing for everybody, you again pray to God to help you become willing. And really that's what the 8th step is about. It's just becoming willing. You have the list, you know who you want. And I believe God, makes no hard terms for anybody who seeks him. So he will bring about opportunities to make these amends. Now usually there's a pretty clear-cut list of people that we need to make amends to off the top of our head. There's usually family, either an ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, current wife, children, boss, friends, co-workers, just about everybody that we were in contact with, in life, we probably have done something to them. And the key to remember here is the way the book talks about it is that we need to go in front of these people and actually tell them what we're trying to do. And that is, we are going to admit that, we had a problem with, alcohol, a substance, whatever you want to say. It's up to you. And we're trying to change our lives. It gives you some guidance in the book whether you should go on about the spiritual path, that this is a path you're taking. It does encourage you to do that, but that kind of leaves you up to you how you want to do that with some people and so forth. But that's really what we're trying to say. I mean, we don't want to become, a Bible thumper and start, trying to convert people or anything like that. What we're trying to do is to go with a truly heartfelt apology. And a willingness to admit that, what I did to you was wrong, okay? And I'm sorry. Now, a mumbling I'm sorry is not good enough. Saying you're sorry when you owe somebody $5,000 is not good enough. You have to be willing to make restitution. Now, there's a lot of fear involved in this. Sometimes, it's very easy to say where it says, unless it would harm somebody, well, this would harm me if I open my mouth, so I'm not going to do it. But we got to think back. Why are we doing this? Okay? We're doing this to be free. We're doing this to be free. Because if we're free, we'll be chipping away the last pieces of the cholesterol that are blocking you from the Spirit that is waiting to come through you and use you as a channel. I think it's in God Calling. They have a good passage in November there about the channel, we're the pipe. And, we're not the water rushing through. Our job is to just be there to allow God to work through you, because that's how he works. He works through people. And so our job is to become fit so that we can be of service to that. And I don't know about you, but I know, for me, many times, when we go to step meetings or 8-step meetings and things like that, if you haven't completely done your list, that thing always seems to pop up in your head. I still haven't made that amends to this guy or that person, and it's eating at you, whether you know it or not. And so that's why we want to get rid of it. And sometimes people might, you might go make an amends to somebody, and they might turn around and have some choice words for you, like, go fuck yourself. I don't really, give a shit. And, this is what you owe me, and give me the money. And that's all I care. Or they might even take a swing at you. I don't know. It depends on what you've done. But remember, we're doing this for one reason, okay? Is to be free. It's to be free, okay? We need to be free. Because once you become free, life becomes so much better. And if you skimp on this and say, well, I don't really need to do that or this and that, you're hurting yourself. And that's why it's important to have a smile. That's what they always tell newcomers also. Don't be making 8 and 9 step amends until you've actually done the work that's in between, because many times if you're new, you just come in, that first realization that you hurt people and this and that, you want to rush out and say, I'm sorry, but you really haven't had the start of the awakening to occur. So you're not ready, and you're really, even though you might be heartfully sorry, you're not in firm spiritual position to do that. So it's important. I always like to touch base on 3 things. I bring a couple of notes because, I know for me, I became an avid reader, which I shared with some of you last week. Scriptural reader. I actually took it upon myself to read, the Bible from, not so much the Old Testament because that's a tough read, but the New Testament from front to back many, many times for myself because I had to be detoxed from what was told me, what was in there, and it was very helpful for me. And I had a different envision of it. But I did find 3 passages in there that I always associated with the big book, and I think they're very, very essential. One of them was, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added unto you. Okay? So that was like a guide. So I need to seek the kingdom of God. And there's no problem with the book. The book tells us we need to seek a power greater than ourselves. And then he also said, and the kingdom of God is within you. Oh, so I need to seek the kingdom, and the kingdom is within me. Now, the book tells us on page 55 that in the final analysis, the only place we will find him, her, universe is deep within you. Okay, I got no problem with that. Okay, and then it also says, unless a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom. Okay, which has been misused by many people over the years. But for me, it meant, unless I have a spiritual awakening, I will not experience the kingdom within me, and I'll be lost. So those 3 statements for me were critical for me. They really it was like a bulb went off, and I was like, wow, this is exactly what the book is telling me I need to do. I need to seek spiritual path. I can't find the kingdom that's within me unless I'm awakened. I can't be awakened unless I do the steps, okay? But if I do the steps, I'll have an awakening, I'll find the kingdom. Beautiful. Here's a roadmap. This is a roadmap to free you up. And then I have only one thing that I need to do after that's completed, and that's to tell you that I know a solution to your problem. This is what you need to do. You need to seek a spiritual path. You need to find the power within you, and the only way you're going to find it is to have a spiritual awakening. And that's what we're supposed to do, pass it on. So those 3 things are essential to my belief in life, and I live off that. But the other thing, now we're at those amends things, and some examples. I remember with, family, my children, because I had done much to my children and they were still young, and I remember I brought them into McDonald's and sat them down, and, it was very clear to them that I wanted to apologize because, Dad disappeared for a year, I did some bad things to you, your mother, blah, blah, blah. They were fidgeting and this, and all they wanted was a Big Mac, but you know what? But it was important for me to do that. It was freeing that I said those words to them. Was it uncomfortable? Yeah, it was uncomfortable to do that, but it was important. And today I have a tremendous relationship with my children, and I believe, even though I didn't go overboard spiritually stuffing all my stuff down their throat, they see me and they know what about who I am and this and that, and it does help. They've given me a run for my money at times, but that's okay. Then I had a girl that I used to work with when I was in Wall Street before I took off and hit the streets that had co-signed a loan for me. And then I disappeared, and I remembered that she got stuck with that loan. So I had to call her up. She lived far away; it wasn't close by. When she first heard it was me on the phone, there was a couple of where the hell you been? Go yourself, blah blah blah. Do you realize? And then I poured my heart out to her and told her what happened. And I said, and at the time, if you remember my story, I'm just coming out of Graymore. I had been in a rehab and a halfway house. I started working. I had lost everything, so I had no money. But I set up a plan where I would pay her back, and she appreciated that. And by the end of the phone call, she wasn't inviting me over for dinner, but she was willing to understand and say fine. And that was freeing to me because it was bothering the heck out of me. My ex-wife, I had to apologize to her, and then of course, she had me served with subpoenas with her boyfriend while I was in AA meeting, just so I could never see my kids again. But we wound up in front of a judge and this and that. And I remember, when I hit the streets and was living in the streets, I neglected to pay child support while I was doing that, so I wasn't sending the payments in. So a whole year went by where I made no payments to her. Now, I wasn't working. So we got in front of the judge. They calculated what I would have owed for a year, and of course I'm thinking, well, I'm sorry, but I wasn't working. I'm on a spiritual path right now. I'll start making payments now. No, sir. You didn't come to court and tell us you weren't working. You're going to owe the money for the whole year. And I was like, shit, that's not how it's supposed to work. But yes, and you know what? I didn't have the money. We set up a plan. It took me 10 years to pay her off, okay? But I did it. And then, of course, my children were somewhat, I think around 10 and 8 and 5, or something like that when I came in. So I had to pay child support for many, many years, and I never missed a payment. It was going through the courts and everything. But I will tell you this. Try stopping making payments, okay? When they became of age, the last one, I couldn't even not make that. And even with now I became friendly with my ex-wife, I had to go and get a lawyer to stop the payments, even when the kids were 21, because that's how the court system works. So I wasn't too happy about that, but I did it. So other things, I had to call my boss that I had walked out on and, apologize. There was friends that I had to apologize. So many of those type of situations, and every one that I could that came about, I had to make those things. And you know what? It was so freeing for me. I was now, because really what starts happening, the promises, as they even though there's many, many more promises than are just said at the end of the ninth step, started coming through in my life, and I just became a different person because I was actually doing the work, and you really you start saying, wow, this is work, this is unbelievable, this is a great way to live, and then I believe the amends process is probably a lifelong process. I did every one that I could do. I had my mother, of course, because I always remember, and I still remember it to this day, when I was Slick Finger Willie, and I'd be in her house and taking my poor mother, who was elderly, I'd be taking money out of the coats in her house, and I stole my kids' piggy banks, and I never forget my mother coming up to me. This still sears my heart, even though I've made major amends on it, and she looked me in the eye and said, you stole my money. And I looked her in the eye, and without any hesitation at all, I said, when you find, and not knowing I stole it, when you find that money, you're going to apologize to me. Right to my mother. And I had to make that amends to her. The thing with my mother, though, she started getting a little bit of dementia, so she didn't remember anything anyway half the time. But it was very important to me, and I made great amends to my mom. Eventually, my mother lived with me for many, many years through the end of her life, and it was a great, although it was challenging, it was a great feeling to be able to be there for her. And she stuck by me when I was homeless up in Graymore and sent me a card. I always remember, don't quit, blah, 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 in spite of everything I had done to her. She was a very special lady. So there was lots of those, and other people, and we have to remember, what are we doing? We are sweeping our side of the street. It's not about sweeping their side of the street. Hopefully, in many cases, if you go to somebody with the right frame of mind, they might actually, at that particular point, so the book says, and it happens once in a while, years of things might melt away, and they might say to you, you know what, I had my part in that too. I was a bit of a pain in the ass. Although my ex-wife never said that. Although she has, yes. And I'm very, we're good friends right now, and the children, and I can honestly say I don't really have anybody that I feel that I need to track down or anything like that. I'm sure there's people in my life that I don't even remember that I hurt or so forth, but if they came in front of me and in any way, I would do everything I could for them. But I'm willing to make amends to everybody I have to. So this is the completion of the journey. And you have to remember, you're doing it for yourself. Now, I will tell you also, there comes in this point, I know for me was a critical thing, which I might have mentioned last week too, because there's going to be people on a list that actually might have done more to you than you did to them. So, but what is bugging me right now is the resentment that I have for them, okay? Even though a lot of that had slipped away in the conversation in the fifth step and so forth. But at this particular point, especially I mentioned, my wife's new boyfriend, whatever he was, who I really despised. He took my kids away from me, went upstate with them. When I tried to call my kids on my allotted times, he would hang up the phone on me. So I didn't really care for him at all. Even in sobriety, I would have to put him back down on the list. But I needed to recognize that for me to carry a resentment for him was only harming me. So I went right back to what the book tells us. I just viewed him as a sick person. Sick son of a bitch, this guy. And I would just say, Father, forgive him, for he knows not what he does. So, I might even take a little superiority in that to be able to say, I'm much more spiritual than you and blah, blah, blah. Whatever. But I would, in my heart, try and just say, I forgive you. For me, I did a lot of work around forgiveness. I listened to some tapes. It helped me out. And it just became, you know what? I'm not letting this guy rent any more space in my head. Okay? I'm just forgiving him. I'm not going to hang out with him. I don't want to see him, anything like that. But I forgive him for whatever he did. If he continues to harm me, I'll utilize the serenity prayer in the manner of the courage to change whatever I can. And if I had to do anything legally, not physically, legally against him, I would. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it was important for me to let go of any resentments I had with anybody else. And then, which we'll talk about next week, is the process of living this experience on a daily basis, because new resentments pop up, people annoy us, they step on our toes, they do this and that. At this particular point, if I have been thorough, I have completely chipped away the spiritual cholesterol that has been blocking me from the Spirit. And I can tell you right now, if you have done a very, very good job, much more than a promise is going to occur, you're going to feel on fire. You will feel the enthusiasm of a God-filled life, a spiritual life, and you will really be want to share that with other people in any way you can. Some of us are teachers, some of us are nurses or listeners or helpers. Everybody has their own role here, but your internal spirit will guide you in how you can be of service to people. And we all can be. Every person here can help somebody. How do we change the world? By helping the person next to you. One person at a time. And I learned that. and continue to learn, to be open-minded, that, the same Spirit that awoke me back then is awakening me to new revelations today, every day. Every day is a new day. As long as I'm willing to tune in, as long as I'm willing to stay awake and admit when I'm wrong, even when it might feel tough to do that. So that's the process. So if you're new, I implore you, with all the earnestness at our command, to follow this process through, all the way through, and you will be awakened, and then you will become a channel for the Spirit. Thanks a lot.